Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bhaja Bhaja Parama Karuna Sabhavatara Sarashiromani Kevala Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Caitanya Sudhida Vishvasakori Bhaja Bhaja Bhai Caitanya Sudhida Vishvasakori Vishaya Chatiya Sera Semajiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Vishaya Chatiya Sera Semajiya Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Pashupati Jore Pashna Vidhare Sunitana Puna Gata Pashupati Jore Pashna Vidhare Sunitana Guna Gata Sangsaramajiya Rohila Padiya Sebode Pedena Hilasha Sangsaramajiya Rohila Padiya Sebode Hilasha Apana Karama Bonjaye Shamana Koye Lochana Dasa apanakarama bunjaye shamana koi lochana dasa. Parama Karuna, Parama Karuna, Joy, Parama Karuna, Joy Doi Jana, Nitai Gora Chandra. Sabhavatara, Sarashiromani, Kevalananda Kanda. Would anyone like to read the English translation?
The two lords, Nitai Gaurachandra, are very merciful. They are the essence of all incarnations. The specific significance of these incarnations is that they introduced a process of chanting and dancing that is simply joyful. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm conviction and faith. If one wants to be Krishna conscious by this process, one has to give up his engagement in sense gratification. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hari
English.
Hari without any motive. My dear brother, just try and examine this. Within the three worlds, there is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda. Their merciful qualities are so great that upon hearing them, even birds and beasts cry and stones melt. But Lochana Dasa regrets that I am entrapped by sense gratification, since I have no attraction for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Then Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, is punishing me by not allowing me to be attracted by this movement.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. So, as many of you know, I been living in New Vrindavan community since 1976, 77. Um, and I used to think that New Vrindavan was the best temple in ISKCON. But after being here for 3 months, I'm having second thoughts. And I think, I mean, all temples have their challenges, and New Vrindavan is not unique in that sense. Um, but what I find is one of the greatest gifts that I'm finding here at Radhikala Chanjidan is there's a very deep sense of community. There's more of a family feel, and I'm hoping I can, by the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas, I can take that back to New Vrindavan and be part. Not that I can bring anything, you know, but if I can be a channel of that energy uh, that you're developing here, I'd be very grateful. Um, and I especially am grateful for all the devotees who, because you all have busy lives and you have, families to take care of, you have jobs to do. I'm semi-retired, so I have a little more flexibility in terms of attending classes. But some of you don't have that luxury right now in your life. So I'm very grateful for that. You take out the time. Especially want to thank, especially the devotees who've been giving Bhagavatam classes here. Dharma Prabhu, you know, Nanda Braj Prabhu, you know, where's Prabhupada Priya Prabhu, Manjari, oh yeah, Manjari Gopi. I can't see so well because the, oh yes. Kishore Mataji, and is Vrinda Sevika here? Is Prema Bhakti Rasa here? Go family members for granted, and then thinking that, especially when I joined Krishna consciousness, being grateful, our misunderstanding was that, wife and family, this is the shackle of the material world, and therefore they are keeping me from serving Krishna. This is like an immature understanding of Krishna consciousness. But I can see here in your community here that you have grown beyond that, and recognizing the value of Vaishnava families, Vaishnava relationships between devotees. And this reminded me of when Srila Prabhupada first stepped foot on Western soil. The first things he wrote down were, "My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul." That was his first expression, his cry out to Krishna, "You're so kind to me." And then we heard it again this morning, right before Tulsi Puja, how Srila Prabhupada was weeping, says, "Lord Chaitanya is so kind." So we can meditate on this. And before I begin, I'd like to tell a quick story about there was one time this aspiring devotee, he had this conception that he was a great speaker, and he would, try to somehow or other attract people. But really, his motive was he thought that by talking about Krishna, I'll get attention. His motive wasn't, he didn't want to glorify Krishna. He thought, well, if I glorify Krishna, then people will give attention to me, rather than give attention to Krishna. So he was, obviously under the flows of the material nature. And so one time he was at a gathering and he was speaking. There was 100 people there. And then after 10 minutes, static. So after about 10 minutes of speaking, 10 people left. He started thinking, oh, they're just in Maya, But these other 90 people here, they have good taste, because they're listening to my speech. Right? Another 10 minutes passed. Another 10 people left. And they're also in Maya. But at least there's 80 people here who have good discrimination, are listening to me speak. Right? Well, this went on until finally there was only 10 people left. And he was still speaking and thinking, all these 90 people, they're in Maya, but these 10 people have a taste for hearing. And finally, there was only one person left. And he said to the person, "Oh, you have so much taste for hearing about Krishna. How did you get this taste?" He said, "Prabhu, you're sitting on my chadar." And you know who his name is? Begins with a K. Kripa Maya Das. But anyway, I don't want to bore you with a self-deprecating script. I'd like to jump into the glorious pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whom we have come to celebrate. Despite, I know but Srila Prabhupada says, it's the qualification of a great soul that they can take gold from the filthy place. So I hope you understand that even though my heart is filthy, what I'm trying to present to you is gold. So, I'd like to, the verse we're sharing today is a very interesting, beautiful verse. Srila Prabhupada does not give a purport to it, but he gave a lecture on this verse. So I'd like to speak from that lecture. And this actually was the first Chaitanya Charitamrta lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave in the West that we have record of. Now, there might have been some transcripts lost, there might have been some tapes that were lost, but this one we still have. This is the only one that we have in the database. So it was on November 27th. And to give a little background, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he met Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami at Ramakeli, and they, wanted to give up their government service and to surrender totally to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. But due to their obligations, and they were not quite, but the time was not right, so they just kept Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet in their hearts. And as you all know, Rupa Goswami was able to give up his government service, but Sanatana Goswami had more difficulty. And he was put into prison, and then eventually he, of course, got released from prison, and he now has made his way to Varanasi. And he, when he arrived there, he came to the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya. And Chandrasekhar Acharya also had a friend with him named Tapan Mishra. So by the time Sanatana Goswami arrived, he had been traveling for many, many days, and his hair had become very long, and he was wearing a dirty cloth, gripped clothing, having gone through the jungle. So it was but he had this woolen blanket that he had given to him by his brother-in-law, who was the husband of his sister. His name was Srikanta. And Srikanta had given him this very valuable woolen blanket. So he was just sitting at the door of Chandrasekhar's house on the threshold there, and wrapped in this blanket. And Lord Chaitanya, being omniscient, he knew what was going on, and he said to Chandrasekhar, please, there's a Vaishnava outside. Please invite him to come in. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Chandrasekhar went out and he looked for the Vaishnava. Sometimes we think of looking for Vaishnavas, they must be having tilak, they must have shaved head, must be wearing dhoti and kirta. But actually, Krishna may send us Vaishnavas who are not, dressed in the typical dress. So we'll always have to be alert. Actually, ultimately, everyone's a Vaishnava, right? And by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we can help them remember that they are Vaishnavas. So anyway, he went back to Lord Chaitanya. There's no Vaishnava outside. And Lord Chaitanya said, look again. So he went outside. He said, I'm sorry, Chandrasekhar Acharya said, no, there's just some Muslim mendicant outside. And Lord Chaitanya said, no, bring him in. So Chandrasekhar said, please, my dear mendicant, you're very fortunate. Lord Chaitanya wants to see you. So as soon as he came into the to the courtyard of Chandrasekhar Acharya, when Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami saw each other, they just came together, and Lord Chaitanya started embracing Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami was feeling himself so unqualified to be in his presence. He said, please, Lord, do not touch me. I'm so sinful. He felt that way. And Lord Chaitanya said, no. I am touching your body for my own purification. Because saints of your caliber can purify the whole universe by the force of your devotional service. So then Lord Chaitanya's, Tapan Mishra then invited Sanatana Goswami to come to his home for prasad. And Lord Chaitanya said, first he must get shaved up and look like a gentleman. So, and Srila Prabhupada mentions in the lecture that normally, Lord Chaitanya's followers are shaven. There's one exception, though. Who's the exception? Advaita Acharya. And why wasn't Advaita Acharya, why didn't he shave up? Well, Srila Prabhupada explains, just listen to the lecture. So, Srila Prabhupada said that Lord Chaitanya did not want to dictate to Advaita Acharya, because Advaita Acharya was a friend of his father's, Jagannath Mishra. So, out of respect, he did not want to dictate to him. But so this is interesting how when right after Sanatana Goswami was shaved up, then Chandrasekhar, he offered Sanatana Goswami some new clothes. And Sanatana Goswami says, no, I will not take new clothing. And when Lord Chaitanya heard this, he was very happy. And then again, Tapan Mishra, offered Sanatana Goswami new clothing. And again, Sanatana Goswami says, no, I cannot accept. If you have something that you've worn, I'll take something that's been used by you. I'll take some remnants. So Tapan Mishra gave him a dhoti, and Sanatana Goswami cut it into slices, some for kalpinas, some for outer dress. And when Lord Chaitanya heard this, he was even more happy. His bliss kept increasing. And then finally this Maharashtrian Brahmin came, and Lord Chaitanya introduced him to Sanatana Goswami. And the Maharashtrian Brahmin said, please come to my home, let me feed you prasad. And Sanatana Goswami says, no, I will not come and eat sumptuously at a Brahmin's house, but I have taken the vow of madhukari. I'll just take a little bit. Srila Prabhupada explained that was the system for renunciates, that they would just take a little bit from each house. They did not want to burden every householder with a demand of sumptuous meals. They would just take a little bit from each house. So when Lord Chaitanya heard this, he became more ecstatic. He was seeing how, first Sanatana Goswami shaved off all his hair, then he renounced taking new clothing. He was becoming more and more renounced. He would only follow the madhukari vrata. But there was one more thing. Does anyone remember what that was? It was Lord Chaitanya kept looking at Sanatana Goswami's woolen blanket, And that, especially for someone who's living, outside, it must have been a wonderful treasure to have a nice warm woolen blanket. And Lord Chaitanya kept looking at it. He didn't say anything. He just looked at it. And Sanatana Goswami was so intelligent, he immediately got to understand the mind of the Lord. And he said, he didn't say anything actually. He just went to the Ganges. And there was another Bengali vairagi there, renunciate. And he had a torn quilt that he just washed in the Ganges, and he hung it up to dry. And then Sanatana Goswami said to, my dear sir, my dear Prabhu, can I please exchange your torn quilt for my woolen blanket? And the vairagi, this devotee said, no, why are you cutting jokes with me? You look like a gentleman, and you're cutting jokes with me. And Sanatana Goswami said, no, I'm not cutting jokes with you. I'm serious. Please, take this blanket. And so this devotee agreed to that. So then he came back to Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya said, Sanatan, where's your blanket? And Sanatan told the whole story. And at this point, Lord Chaitanya, he was so filled with ecstasy. He said, yes, I've been deliberating on this. And now by Krishna's mercy, he has taken away all your material attachments. So I've been meditating on my own spiritual life. What are my material attachments? Of course, I know I have a lot of attachments to, adoration, fame, and distinction. These are some of the diseases of the mind, of the conditioned soul. Right? But even I remember Yamuna, Mother Yamuna, one of the pioneers of our movement, she said that one of the greatest diseases in our society is the sense of entitlement. Right? And I feel like myself. Sometimes I feel like I'm entitled, to to be treated in a certain way. Just like this morning, after Mangalartik, I went down Beacon Street. I came to Gaston. We have a little apartment there. I made a right-hand turn to Gaston. And about 30 seconds later, the police car lights are going on behind me. And it pulls me over. I says, I wasn't speeding. I kind of got uppity, but I was like a little offended. I'm a good driver, but I was thinking, well, he's a police officer. I don't want to antagonize him. So I rolled down the window and said, sir, can I see your license? I didn't have my license with me. I left it here in the temple. And so I felt that I wasn't entitled to be stopped, But then he says, okay, he checked, he couldn't find my records, but he said, look, I'll let you go. It's a minor infraction. I did not realize that it's against the law to make a turn without putting on your blinker. So here was like at 5:30 in the morning. There was no cars on the road. And I didn't put my blinker on when I made the right turn. I stopped at the stoplight, and then the light turned green, and I made a right turn. What was I doing wrong? But then, of course, when that happened, I thought, oh my God, I just missed a golden opportunity. I could have asked this police officer, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you say, Gornatai? It was a missed opportunity because he was special. That's never happened in my whole life. You get stopped for not turning a turn signal on at a stoplight. And then it reminded me of a story. One time, I was distributing books, and I was at a shopping plaza, and there was this Colonel Sanders was right outside the Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I went up to him, and I said, Colonel Sanders, here's a Bhattacharya magazine. He went, oh, no. Wow, can you at least say Hare Krishna? And he said, no. Can you say Gornatai? He went, Gornatai? So when we heard this morning when Srila Prabhupada said that Gornatai is even more merciful than Krishna, right? And because even though we may have so many, defects, so many faults, Lord Chaitanya does not consider them. His love is unconditional. Krishna, as Srila Prabhupada said this morning, Krishna demands that you surrender to him, and then he gives you, pure bhakti. But Lord Chaitanya is not even demanding anything. Just the only thing he asks us to do is chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But of course, as soon as we start chanting, we realize there's more to really chant, Because it's like Sanatana Goswami had this blanket, We all have our little blankets, our little things that we're still attached to. It's like this morning, like I left my cell phone in the temple. That's why I try to keep my ID. That was so much anxiety, Just think, if only I had that sense of same anxiety for my cell phone as I had for Krishna. We lose things and we become so filled with, I don't know if you do, but when I lose things, I become so filled with anxiety. If only I had that anxiety for Krishna, for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So what's very instructive about this story is how pleased Lord Chaitanya was with the renunciation of Sanatana Goswami, and how strict Sanatana Goswami was, that he would not take any new clothing, he would not eat at one and be, Lord Chaitanya said, if you go doing Madhakari wearing this blanket, it'll be a joke, So Sanatana Goswami was strict. But it wasn't that Lord Chaitanya was demanding him to be strict, because Lord Chaitanya himself set the example. And we see when Briya Mridanga Babu gave class last week, he was speaking from the Beta Kirtan pastimes. And that shows how Lord Chaitanya himself was strict on himself. That's why he was Acharya. That's why his words had potency. Like sometimes you'll hear devotees speaking, and they speak with such conviction, just like it says in this prayer by Lochan Das Thakur, my only request is that, he says, please, my dear brothers, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya Nityananda with firm conviction in the faith, right? So to be able to serve, to worship Lord Chaitanya Nityananda, we need that firm conviction and faith. So Lord Chaitanya, in an example of how he was strict with himself, is here King Prataparudra. He was a powerful king, actually extremely powerful king. At that time, he was surrounded by two inimical kingdoms, by the Nawab Hussain Shah in the north in Bengal. And at that time, the Bengali Sultanate was one of the most, in terms of wealth, it was like America is now throughout the world. People would come, merchants would come from all over the world to trade in Bengal. It was such a wealthy nation at that time. And then on the south, he was another powerful king from the South India, and they were always attacking him, But Prataparudra was able to, by he was a very qualified Kshatriya ruler. But of course, his greatest quality that he's remembered for now, like there's so many kings, throughout history, but we don't remember them. But we do remember King Prataparudra. Actually, there's a saying that ambition has one reward for all: a little fame, a little power, little transitory fame, a grave to rest in, and a fading name. This is, we'll all be, I find, at least for myself, we'll all be forgotten within, but pure devotees like Prataparudra and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, here we are, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, 500 years later, we're reading about these great souls. And I was just remembering when Nanda Kumar Prabhu gave class, he was talking about how there's so many different sweets, right? Like there's sandesh, there's rasgulla, right? What other sweets are there? The burfi, right? Jalebis, right? That's another wonderful sweet. Gulab jamins, right? Shrikant, yes. So many delicious sweets. But he says, what is the sweetest Bengali sweet? Caitanya Caritamrta, And why is it? So Nanda Kumar Babu said, it's because Caitanya Caritamrta teaches us how devotees should relate to each other, And we see this in the example of Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya went to South India, he was gone for 2 years traveling. And when he came back, he sent Kala Krishna Das to Bengal. He was sent to tell Sachimata and all the devotees that Lord Chaitanya had returned. So 200 devotees came from Bengal, and they were coming in this glorious Sankirtan procession. that no one had, it was a Sankirtan, it was Prema Sankirtan. It just wasn't Sankirtan, it was Prema Sankirtan. Sankirtan no one had ever heard before. And King Prataparuja was asking Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who are these devotees? So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya began to glorify each devotee. And so by doing that, that established the atmosphere, you know. It is in the mind of King Prataparuja, by hearing the glories of the devotees, you know, his mind became saturated by hearing their glorious qualities and their glorious activities in relationship to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That his heart just became more and more desirous to be with Lord Chaitanya. So I was just hearing the other day the glories of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and how when he came here, there was only 2 devotees here in Dallas. And I know Nrsimha Rupa was hoping to someday find out who those devotees were. But when Tamal Krishna Maharaj got here, he turned the whole project around. And he was able to build this community up into what it is today, help build it up into what it is today. And one thing I loved about hearing about the glories of my glorious elder godbrother is how one time devotees came together and he wanted to hear the glories of all of his godbrothers and godsisters. And he asked, he started to glorify them, in the presence of the devotees. So we can learn from from King Prataparuja and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, how to create a festive atmosphere, right? How to create a festive community. Is by looking to see what is the good in others. And I know it may sound clichéic, but it is a necessary practice in our practice of bhakti, learning to see the good in others. Just like with myself, when I was stopped by the police officer, my sense of entitlement, right? That I'm a good driver, he has no right to stop me or criticize my driving, right? That sense of entitlement blinded my vision from the opportunity to give him Krishna, right? So in the same way, these what we're holding on to, these blankets that we're holding on to in our spiritual life, we're missing out on opportunity, to spread Krishna consciousness, either within our family, within our community, within the greater community of the devotees, the potential devotees who are coming here or may not be coming here. So I feel like now I've touched a little bit, and it's just so impossible to talk about Lord Chaitanya without feeling incomplete, because his pastimes are so incomplete, so unlimited. Right? But I'll just like to end with this one pastime. Is how, and this was actually Anuradha Mataji when she gave her class. She reminded me of this pastime. So, Lord Chaitanya, getting back to what we spoke about earlier, how Lord Chaitanya would set the example. Not only did he have that expectation of renunciation with Sanatana Goswami, but he also he set the example in his own dealings. So when King Prataparuja wanted to meet Lord Chaitanya refused, because he said, he's a king. And a sannyasi to associate with a king, is contaminating. Because what will happen is then you become dependent, upon their patronage, Just like when Sanatana Goswami gave up his blanket, Lord Chaitanya said, now you are free. You're no longer dependent. You're independent, right? So to become independent, if we want to become independent, we have to become free from material desires. And so Lord Chaitanya refused to see King Prataparudra. But it was only after when Ramananda Roy began to express to Lord Chaitanya the sacrifice of King Prataparudra, did Lord Chaitanya's heart begin to soften. When he saw how much service he had done for the devotees, how Ramananda Roy was a government employee, right? And as soon as he went to King Prataparudra, he said, I want to take shelter of Lord Chaitanya. So, unlike the Nawab Hussain Shah, who put Sanatana Goswami in prison, right? When Ramananda Roy went to King Prataparudra gave him a lifetime pension, full salary for the rest of his life, so that he could serve Lord Chaitanya without any hindrance. So by the mercy of Ramananda Roy, who spoke very kindly, with kindness about King Prataparudra, Lord Chaitanya's heart became softened. And then eventually, during the Rath Yatra festival, King Prataparudra began to sweep the street in front of the Lord Jagannath's cart. And Lord Chaitanya's heart became further softened. And finally, after the Rath Yatra festival, Lord Chaitanya, he went to the garden. And King Prataparudra was told by the devotees to dress as an ordinary clothing. And he went there, and he was told to recite 5 chapters from the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. And the verse was, please help me, Tava Caitanyamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavabirutitam Adhananasana Shravana Mangalam Sudasatitam. And when Lord Chaitanya heard that verse, he got up and he embraced King Prataparudra. So, if we want to be embraced by Lord Chaitanya, we have to always glorify his pastimes. And not just his pastimes, but the philosophy. Actually, the philosophy is just as nectarine as the pastimes. Srila Prabhupada wrote in a letter to Harigriva. Of course, this is contextual, so we don't want to take this out of context. But he said, philosophy is more important than pastimes. I was surprised to hear that. Not that we shouldn't relish the pastimes, but the philosophy is important because that's what we can remove the dirt from our hearts. And that would bring us to the point where we can start to relish the pastimes. And just as when Sanatana Goswami gave up his blanket for 2 months, once he gave up everything, what happened? For 2 months, Lord Chaitanya spoke to him the teachings of Lord. And Srila Prabhupada compiled these. That's why I think Srila Prabhupada started with this verse in the West, because after the Bhagavad Gita, the next book that Srila Prabhupada published was the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So, in closing, I'd just like to say that for my own purification, I'm saying this because I know many of you realize this. But when it comes to chanting our japa in the morning, at least even though I know I cannot give up all my blankets, I cannot give up all my attachments, at least for that 2.5 hours, if I can just, to the best of my ability, stop meditating on my attachments and just open my heart to hear the holy name and accept the mercy and blessings of the Vaishnavas, then our path back home, back to Godhead, will be assured. So I want to thank you all so much for your kind attention. Any topics for discussion? Any thoughts, any reflections, any questions or clarifications?
Thank you. Hare Krishna. I just wanted to say, thank you for the beautiful class. I just want to say, when I used to think Dallas Temple was the best, but then I went to West Virginia Temple, New Vrindavan, and I thought it was the best temple. It is amazing temple. It's like practically a brother-sister temple to Dallas. It's very similar, and not just because they have the pillars that we have, these big pillars right here. They have all those, they have a lot of pillars like that there, but there's a giant temple room. But the deities are very sweet and lovely, and their Radharani reminds me of our Radharani. I mean, all the Radharanis are the same, right? She's Radharani, Srimati Radharani. But there was I felt a special kinship or relationship between the deities there. And they have Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra Devi. They have Lord Nrsingadev there. Beautiful Lord Nrsingadev. So I was there for about a week on 2 different visits, and Prabhu was there every single day, morning, Mangal Arati, class for everything. And so sometimes I heard too, he lives about 6 miles away. Sometimes Prabhu will walk from his home to the temple. And it's a very mountainy, it's a very hilly area, right? So there's hills everywhere, and it's amazing. His wife and he manage a gift shop there at Prabhupada's Palace of Gold. And so I wanted to thank Kripa Maya Prabhu, because he's one of those devotees, when you see him, you feel Krishna conscious. You feel Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy. He's a living example of how to be a devotee, a Hare Krishna devotee, full on, and always exudes an attitude of loving kindness. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Prabhu, I'm going overboard here, but seeing him in New Vrindavan is even more amazing than seeing him here. It's like that's his abode, that's his place, right? And he's so at home there, and it's an amazing temple to visit. I highly recommend it. It's such a beautiful area and so much history there. And so Prabhu's been there from practically the beginning, I think. And, you know, there were difficulties at New Vrindavan, but Prabhu stayed, made it work, never criticized, never got angry, never left, and has served there for years. So Kripa Maya Prabhu ki! Kripa Maya Prabhu ki jai. And I just wanted to say thank you for that, and thank you for always coming to Dallas, and for your wonderful daughter and son-in-law and their family. And so we're so happy for them, yeah. They're huge, huge members of our community. And but I want to thank you for the blanket story, you know, of Sanatan Goswami. It's so cool, you know. He had this opulent blanket, and he trades it for this threadbare, worn-out blanket, you know. And Lord Chaitanya is very pleased, you know. So you've given me a really nice phrase that I want to use in my life: giving up my blankets. I have way too many blankets. Some I need to get rid of. Some I could trade with someone else and get a little less nice blanket. So I'm going to start trying to do that. So I want to thank you so much, everyone. Sorry, please forgive me, Kripa Maya Prabhu, for putting you on the spot and saying all this in front of you. I'm sorry, but it need to be said. You're such a wonderful devotee and family. Thank you. Kripa Maya Prabhu ki.
I don't get even, I get revenge. When Dharma Baba gave class, he said that by talking about Krishna, we please Radharani. And then when we talk about Lord Chaitanya, we get Radha and Krishna together. We get 2 for 1. Buy one, get one free.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this wonderful nectarian class. Because it deals with personal relationships, it's like so important. When I heard what you said that how Ramananda Rai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wouldn't accept the king, Prataparudra, until Ramananda Rai begged him, told him he's such a great devotee and this and that. So it's very important for us also, I feel, that we should recognize devotees who are very, very exalted, but they don't. I love these devotees here in Dallas, Texas.
Haribol, Haribol. Thank you so much for sharing that.
They're so sweet. Every time I come here, they show me so much love and affection. And thank you for this other point that you said, that everyone is a Vaishnav. Especially when you look at, for me, I can say, family members. Some give you so much hard time, but but I'm learning to see that they are also Vaishnavas. They just don't realize it. So thank you for that.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Echoing all the sentiments, we're so happy to have you, Prabhu. I'll give you one little constructive criticism. You didn't sing a song today, so I'm missing that. If you don't have your guitar. In the evening, tonight, are we going to have a musical? Okay, good. But I was going to share that, and you touched on this a little bit, but I really enjoy hearing examples of how Lord Caitanya showed us how we should treat devotees. I just got to hear a little bit from my spiritual master this morning before I came here. I'm going to finish his class later. But he was talking about how Lord Caitanya, he loved to serve. He would wash the clothes of other devotees. If somebody was carrying a heavy load, he would stop and take that from them and carry it to their house. So I was wondering if you could think of any other examples, because I really love hearing this.
Well, it just reminded me of when all the devotees came to Jagannath Puri. Lord Chaitanya, personally instructed that King Prataparucha find accommodations for them, and he went and he garlanded the devotees, and he brought them prasadam with his own. He fed them prasadam with his own hands, and it just reminds me. And when you said that, it reminded me of what Srila Prabhupada said later in this lecture on this verse in New York. He said that my spiritual master, whenever you'd offer obeisances to him, he would offer his obeisances back, saying, Dasosmi. So he said, the spiritual master thinks that my disciples are he said on this tape, he says, the spiritual master thinks my disciples are my spiritual master. So that this is what you're just saying, this frees us from this sense of entitlement. Our only identity is servant, So thank you for reflecting on that message of. So can anyone else think of more other concrete examples of Prabhupada Priya? Prabhu?
Actually, I was going to ask something else, if that's okay. Or do you want to see if someone has other examples?
No, we can.
Okay. Sorry. I was just, I was reflecting a little bit on this topic of entitlement, and definitely something that I see in myself. It's like after you've been in Krishna consciousness for so many years, and especially if you have a position or something, then you come to expect, some kind of special treatment or something like that, And it's, I don't know, when you have those expectations come up, it's kind of wrong. Like, I shouldn't feel like this. It feels contaminating to even feel like that. But then there it is, So, you seem to be really expert at this. You're a Prabhupada disciple, but you're just so humble and unassuming. And so, like, what is your secret? When those feelings of, I'm senior or I'm whatever, we think we are, come up. Like, what do you tell yourself to make it, to like have a reality check?
Thank you for your question. One thing that's helped me is staying in the association of devotees, because they remind you, they help you become humble. I don't mean that in a facetious way, because by their example, they remind you of what it is to be humble. Just like Gokulananda Prabhu, after class, he's such a humble devotee. He doesn't give class, and yet he's so qualified to give class. But he sets the example of wanting to hear. And after the class, can I share this story, Prabhu? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. But it's just it just really stuck into my mind. Like coming to class, we get so much juice. But also after class, discussing even further. It was Prema Bhakti Rasa Prabhu said that our hearing is not complete until we repeat, So after class the other day, so he was saying how when he was originally from a highly classed Brahminical family, the Saraswati class in India. And he had this Brahmin thread from that training, from that upbringing. So when he came to the temple, correct me if I'm wrong, Prabhu, but when he came to the temple, he kept his Brahmin thread. And then there was another devotee who was a colleague of his who had already joined the ashram. And he didn't have a Brahmin thread. He was thinking, what happened to his Brahmin thread? He was from the same caste, same class. Where's his thread? And he got the message that he was proud. So he took his Brahmin thread off and he disposed of it. And as soon as he did that, he felt this grace, this feeling of love from Lord Caitanya. So in trying to remain humble, I'm not a very humble soul. To be honest with you, I'm learning more and more to be able to identify. But what I am trying to become good at is identifying my false ego, diagnosing my disease. So the first step is we have to have an accurate diagnosis. We have to recognize, when that false ego is flaring up. And as far as, being free from the sense of time, like even myself, someone will say, oh, you're a Prabhupada disciple. But actually, if I'm not following Prabhupada's instructions, I'm really not his disciple. I have to follow his instructions. It's not an official designation, Just like Nandini Prabhu said in class, that we have to live in the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. So I'm just trying to live inside those instructions, not stand outside the building, but go inside, Anyway, it's a deep topic, but thank you for that question. So,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danat Pranam. It's a very beautiful class, Prabhuji. Thank you for your very insightful class. You're talking about we have so many attachment and entanglement. We are every day trying to become free, but we are entangling ourselves so much. The things, Prabhu, I was also realizing the things you also said at the end, because we just open our heart and take the shelter of the holy name, even though we have so many attachment. Sometime even Rupa Goswami said Yukta Vairagya. We use the word of Yukta Vairagya and use everything we thought we are using everything in the service of the Lord, but in the name of Yukta Vairagya, actually we are trying to become detached, but same time Rupa Goswami said we have to use everything in the service of the Lord. Not our goal is not to detach, yes, and use everything in the service of the Lord. And then we try to get the new things, everything perfectly in our life in Krishna consciousness. So we use for everything for Krishna, but
ultimately we are missing the point, and then we are becoming more attached and entangling. Means it's very difficult to figure out that part, Prabhuji. Means that this Yukta Vairagya, and then not in the name of Yukta Vairagya. I think it's very hard for me to figure out, Means I'm not using for me, for the Krishna. Means how can we figure out that things? It's very hard, Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you so much. That's a really a wonderful point, which deserves greater attention. I don't want to extend the class much longer because it's 9 o'clock, but I just want to respond to real quickly what you said, that the mood by which we use, Krishna's giving everyone here a special gift. Just like he doesn't make any two snowflakes the same, right? So every devotee, he's given a special gift. So renunciation doesn't mean to renounce that gift, but it's with the mood, the selfless mood that, how can I use this for your pleasure, Lord? So it gets back to Bhagavad Gita 101. Karminya evadikaraste ma palesha gadachana ma karma phalehetubha mate sanghasa karmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of fruits of action. Never be attached to not doing your duty. So it takes, as Krishna tells Arjuna, it takes constant practice and detachment. So we have, yes, what you're saying, a knife can take a man's life, but in the hands of a surgeon, it can save a man's life. So it's how you use it. It's the mood in which you take that knife. Anyway. Yeah. Oh. Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. Please feel free.
Prabhu, you asked about who that couple or who those devotees were. The
Yes.
first devotees when Tamal Krishna Goswami came. That was Divyaganananda Prabhu and his wife. And they had a son named Govinda. They were worshipping Radhakala Chandji. Everybody else had left.
Oh, wow.
The temple was actually bankrupt. They was going into foreclosure. They had sold all the stained glass windows off all the buildings and sold the fence off. And then it was really in bad repair.
Wow. Oh, thank
This
you.
was a basketball court. In Radhakala Chandji, we were on a small wooden platform back here. And then we had an old Vyasasan, which Srila Prabhupada's deity. The Vyasasan's up in his room now. It's been, completely reupholstered. But that was pretty much all that was here. And the restaurant was just a mop closet. And the other building was demolished, in really bad repair. We used to call it the dungeon, because all the ceilings and everything were fallen in, and it was in bad shape. But it was Divyaganananda Prabhu. He stayed on with his wife. You might know him. He's a
Divyaganananda?
Yeah, he's a Prabhupada disciple.
Wow. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Prabhu, I was also appreciating this point of relationships. I was appreciating thinking about how the 6 Goswamis, how much they loved each other, giving gifts, and they'd go to each other's temples in the morning and stuff. And I know that it's my own shortcomings, theoretically. This kind of thinking, I think, but if the 6 Goswamis had to deal with my wife, then what would they do? I'm obviously being a little facetious in my wife, but we have that, this person, but they're not pure devotees, so how can I have good relationship because of their faults? And so the point is, we have this, at least I do, have this fault-finding quality. And I'm really hoping to hear about how to overcome that disqualification of fault-finding.
There's a picture I'd like to show. Maybe I can show it tonight. that might visually answer that question. It's called Three Men Holding a Grudge. And it shows three men, and they have the most miserable looks on their face. I mean, they look like they're just very unhappy people. And they're holding, all three of them are holding this creature in their hands. And this creature looks like the most obnoxious, worm-like, otherworldly snake-like monster, and they're holding it in their hands. And when you see the title of the painting, Three Men Holding a Grudge, so I saw that, I reflected like, that's what I'm doing in my own spiritual life. I hold on to these grudges, Well, I didn't get treated like this. No one's, appreciated what I did, and I worked so hard. Like the mind just goes on and on and on, right? So it's never enough for the mind. The mind is, and so, especially when we're with our family members or community members, because we're with each other, and I remember Ramnath Maharaj used the example of was it bamboo, right? Bamboo rods growing in a swamp. So there's something growing, and they're all just, taking in the sunshine, taking in the rain, enjoying the atmosphere, doing their thing, photosynthesis, right? But then the wind blows, and then there's friction, right? The bamboo didn't ask the wind to blow, but the wind blew anyway. And that's just the nature of Kali Yuga, These winds of Kali Yuga keep blowing, and we're just trying to grow peacefully, but all of a sudden the winds come, and there's this, friction. The bamboo starts rubbing together, and then fire, and then there's anger, and there's argument, and that happens every day with my, I know my own relationship with my wife. She's a very clean, organized person, right? And I'm not, by my conditioning, I'm not very clean and organized, So, she, has to remind me. And so I think, well, who do you remind me? I'm a Prabhupada disciple. That sense of entitlement. See, as soon as we identify with a material body, what happens? We get a title. I'm a human being, I'm a tiger, I'm a Prabhupada disciple, I'm a this, I'm a that, right? And as soon as we get that title, with that title we think we're entitled. So, you know the answer better than I do. It's just by being a servant of the servant, What's that story in the Mahabharata, right? Who was it that released the Brahmastra? Was it Asatama? And it was, everyone was on the battlefield, right? And everyone, Yudhishthira told everyone, get down, But Bhima, no, I'm not going to get down. I'm going to defeat this because I'm so strong. And then who was it? Who came and tackled him? Someone. Who? Arjuna and Krishna, right? They brought him down because he wouldn't have been able to withstand it. So it's that Chanada piece in Chainab, that wearing that necklace of that verse from Lord Chaitanya Shikshastakam around our neck 24/7, to be more humble more than, to feel oneself lower than the straw on the street, more tolerant than the tree. What does it mean to feel oneself lower than the straw on the street? How can it be lower than the straw on the street? But that is, whatever that is, devotee aspires at every moment. It's almost like, has to be like the oxygen, I think we mentioned this in one class, the oxygen of the soul is humility. And without it, we suffocate. But I'm sure you have some realizations on this.
Just the realization of your point of entitlement and titles. I thought that was such a good point, that the titles, do our titles make us think that we're something important, or do they give us a attitude of service? You know, because I don't think you can get away from entitlement completely, or excuse me, not entitlement, titles completely, right? But we have Doss on the end of our name, Davy Dossie, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
is my title like husband even? Do I think husband is, or father is because these are, here's my family and this and that, or husband, oh my gosh, I'm a servant of my wife and my family, and I have a real service there that's important. So that's one thing that I'm going to take away from this is my titles causing me to falsely identify with my ego, or are they giving me humility to serve better?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Within every title we have, the essence is Das. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kripamaya Prabhu. I just want to one more time appreciate you and thank you for coming, and to Krishna Baba Prabhu as well. We're very grateful to both of you for coming and giving us your association here in Dallas, and we pray that every time you come, that it just gets a little longer and a little longer and a little longer until we can just always be together. And so grateful for your wonderful classes, and I was appreciating Manjari Gopika's comment, and then I realized you did actually sing a song. You sang Parama Karuna, but I think she was referring to maybe your composition. So we appreciate those very much as well. We're just there for those that don't know, Krishna Baba Mataji and Kripamaya Prabhu, they're great. They're very artistic, and as we know, Kripamaya Prabhu was always producing wonderful songs and dramas, and she teaches art to the kids at the Gurukul, and we're very grateful. And next Sunday, actually, Kripamaya Prabhu will be giving the class, and Krishna Baba Prabhu has written a really nice book on the Das Avatar, and it's like original art, and so she'll be selling that book as well, so we'll have an opportunity to see that. But we're just so grateful for your association, and then I think they leave the following Monday, so I would encourage everybody, if you can, take advantage of the time that they're here and take some of their association. And Prabhu will be giving class again tonight. I humbly begged him to give 2 classes today so we could take advantage of their association. Thank you so much, Prabhu. We're very, very grateful to both of you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Shichi Gornatai ki.
Jai.
Vaishnava Sangha ki.
Jai. His Grace Kripamaya Prabhu ki. Jai.
Oh, right, right. Right, right.
Go